Have you ever walked into your house and felt a heaviness in the air, without even knowing why? As if the environment is charged, as if something there drains your energy, even when everything seems apparently in order. Maybe you even thought it was just accumulated tiredness, a difficult day, ordinary stress. But what if I told you that this discomfort doesn't just come from outside, but is born exactly within the space where you live? Your home may be reflecting more than you realize. It may be mirroring old emotions, unconscious behavior patterns, and even emotional blocks that you try to ignore. The energy of the environment in which you live directly impacts your well-being, your mood, and your disposition. But the most alarming thing is that this happens every day, without you even realizing it. Some sensations you carry may not originate from your work, your relationships, or the rhythm of life outside. They may be being nurtured, silently, by the spaces you should most consider safe. Every object, every color on the walls, every corner of the house, even the ones you haven't looked at in weeks, is communicating something to your mind. And what's worse, your subconscious is listening to everything, even if you're not. Do you find it difficult to relax even when you are at home? Do you notice that there are rooms that you avoid without a clear reason? Or perhaps, have you ever found yourself compulsively rearranging furniture in an attempt to change the mood of the place, but without understanding exactly why? This is no coincidence. This is a symptom. Your home is a reflection of your mind. And in the same way that chaotic environments can intensify anxiety, very neutral or lifeless spaces can reinforce feelings of stagnation. The way you organize your home, the objects you choose to keep, the lighting that comes in through the windows, the tones on the walls, it's all saying something. All of this is silently programming your emotional state. But why doesn't anyone talk about it? Why do most people see the house as just a physical, functional place, and not as a mirror of what is happening inside? Because it's easier to ignore the invisible. However, this invisible demands a high price. It sabotages your productivity, affects your sleep, influences your relationships, and undermines your ability to maintain a balanced mind. And that's exactly why you need to understand now how your home could be interfering with your mental health, without fanfare, without obvious signs, but with daily and profound consequences. There is a direct connection between the way you live and the way you feel. But this connection goes far beyond aesthetics. It's in the details that you're used to not noticing, in the excesses that you avoid questioning, in the spaces you learn to endure, but never truly felt like yours. And all of this matters, much more than it seems. Because if your home is a mirror of your mind, then what is it saying about you right now? Your home should be the place where you recharge your batteries, where you find peace and relief after an intense day. But what if, without realizing it, it is precisely this space that is draining your energy, increasing your anxiety and sabotaging your well-being? If you've ever felt inexplicable tiredness when you get home, a feeling of heaviness in the air, or even the desire to avoid certain rooms, no, you're not alone. This silent, often ignored feeling has affected the lives of thousands of people, and perhaps you are one of them. Today, you will understand how the environment where you live may be reflecting hidden emotional patterns that directly influence your energy, your mind, and even your daily decisions. We will clearly reveal what invisible signals your home may be emitting, and more importantly, how to transform them. Throughout the video, you will discover practical and in-depth adjustments that can make your space a true point of emotional balance. A home that truly welcomes you, represents you, and strengthens your mind every day. What you are about to see can completely change the way you see the place you live, and most importantly, how it affects your emotional state. Every detail we will explore here was designed to help you reconnect your home with who you are today. So stay with me until the end. The transformation you are looking for can start now, and it starts with the environment that surrounds you every day. There is an invisible but absolutely real connection between the way your home is and what is happening inside your mind. The state of your physical environment is not a coincidence. It is a reflection of your emotional life, the accumulated mess, the excess of objects, the darkness in the rooms, the cramped or suffocating spaces. Each of these elements carries a message about how you are dealing with your internal energy, your emotions, your own story. Your house speaks. And what has she said? About you? Constant disorganization, for example, is rarely just a result of the rush of everyday life. In many cases, it is a faithful portrait of an internal state of confusion, mental overload, and emotional exhaustion. When the mind is saturated, environments tend to follow the same pattern. The accumulation of papers, clothes, objects that no longer have a function but continue to take up space are visible extensions of postponed decisions, of unprocessed emotions, of situations that need to be faced but were left aside. Everything out of place may be carrying the symbolic weight of a thought that is also out of order within you. And when the environment starts to weigh down, everything weighs down. The simple act of being at home starts to generate discomfort. It's as if the place that should offer rest and protection begins to demand more of your energy than it gives back. This directly interferes with your emotional well-being, affects your productivity, destabilizes your focus, and can even influence the way you relate to other people. Because deep down, when your home is out of balance, your mind feels it too. And when your mind is overwhelmed, your physical space will reflect exactly that state. This is why so many people find it difficult to keep their home organized when they are going through moments of emotional instability. The person even knows what they need to do, but something gets stuck. The energy seems stuck. Motivation doesn't appear. And this happens because the environment is entangled with what is being felt internally. The excess of objects, for example, may represent an excess of unresolved thoughts, emotional issues that have accumulated over time. What has not been processed emotionally finds its place in the environment as a form of unconscious compensation. And it's not just about aesthetics or functionality. It is a type of deep mirroring between the internal and external. A dark environment, for example, with curtains, always closed, dim lighting, very cold or neutral tones, can symbolize a phase of forced introspection, intense emotional fatigue, or even prolonged emotional sadness. On the other hand, the exaggerated search for extremely clean, white, and empty environments may indicate an attempt at control or emotional distance, as if the space was trying to hide something that has not yet been resolved internally. Home is the place where your energy rests, where your thoughts reorganize, where your mind recharges. But this only happens when there is harmony between what you feel and what the environment offers you. When this harmony is broken, the environment starts to generate tension instead of relief, overload instead of refuge. And the most impressive thing is that, often, this process happens silently. People wake up tired, sleep poorly, feel unmotivated, and don't realize that the way they live is directly linked to how they feel. Some rooms in the house reveal more than others. The bedroom, for example, is a space of emotional intimacy. When it is constantly messy, with accumulated objects, scattered clothes, intense artificial lighting, it may be revealing a state of anxiety and internal exhaustion. The kitchen, which represents nutrition and care, when neglected, can indicate emotional neglect, discouragement, and disconnection from one's own routine. And the living room, which is where relationships manifest themselves, can reveal stuck family dynamics, a feeling of invasion, or even emotional isolation. None of this is random. The way you live in physical space is a direct reflection of the way you live within yourself. Excess visual information generates mental fatigue. The lack of identity in the space generates emotional disconnection. And the accumulation of objects that no longer represent who you are blocks your ability to reconnect with who you are becoming. Your home holds versions of yourself that you may have outgrown, but still keep close by, in the form of inherited furniture, decorations that no longer make sense, memories that no longer represent the present. That's why the house has so much power to influence your mind, because it carries everything: stories, emotions, phases, forgotten desires, unresolved traumas, abandoned dreams. She is like a mirror that reveals, with brutal honesty, what you try to hide even from yourself. And when you start looking at the environment with this awareness, everything changes. What seemed like just mess starts to have another meaning. You begin to understand that it's not just about tidying things up, but about reorganizing yourself internally. The natural light that does not enter through the window may represent the lack of clarity in your thoughts. The shelf full of functionless objects may be showing how much you have been carrying around things that no longer make sense. And that corner of the house that you avoid, that space that seems dead, may be reflecting a part of you that still needs to be looked at more carefully. Your home is constantly sending out signals about your emotional state, and these signs become more evident when you silence the rush and observe with presence. The house, when seen with this more conscious look, becomes a powerful tool for self-knowledge. It stops being just scenery and becomes an active part of your journey of emotional balance. Instead of just occupying a space, it starts to serve as a real extension of your identity, your essence, your life intention. A living space, shaped by conscious choices, where every detail communicates balance, welcoming, and authenticity. But for this to happen, you have to be willing to see beyond the surface, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Because understanding how your home reveals hidden emotional patterns is the first step to creating a new reality within yourself. The transformation process begins when you recognize that the signs are there, waiting to be read, and from this recognition, you begin to reorganize not only the environment around you, but also the way you feel within it. Your mind and your home can move together towards balance, and that just depends on the next step you choose to take. You are starting to see your home in a completely new way. This change of perspective is the first step towards a profound transformation, because realizing that every detail around you carries an emotion, a memory, or a reflection of your internal state puts you in a place of conscious choice. The way you live in your space reveals much more than you imagine, and from now on, this understanding becomes part of your routine. Your home communicates with your mind all the time, and you're already learning to listen. This channel is the right place for anyone looking to live in an environment that strengthens energy, calms thoughts, and offers true emotional balance. With each video, you will access new knowledge, new practices, and insights that will guide you in this process of reconnecting with your home and yourself. Here, you will find clear guidance to transform your home into a space of peace, identity, and mental clarity. Subscribe to the channel now and be part of a community that chooses to live more consciously, more lightly, and with more presence at home. This journey is just beginning, and the next step will further open your perception of what your space is saying about you. Let's continue. The way each room in your home is structured, cared for, and occupied reveals deep aspects of your subconscious. These spaces are not just functional. Each of them energetically represents an area of your emotional life, and the way these environments present themselves says a lot about how you are taking care of, or failing to take care of, the emotions they symbolize. The house is an extension of the mind, and therefore, each room speaks precisely about the way you see yourself, treat yourself, and position yourself in the world. There is an emotional intelligence that is expressed physically through the spaces of the house, and it all starts with the bedroom. The bedroom is where you rest, where your energy recovers, where you retreat to find silence, rest, and presence. It is one of the most intimate environments, and at the same time, one of the most exposed to your real emotional state. A disorganized room with piled up clothes, a poorly made bed, an excess of useless objects, or excessive artificial lighting immediately reveals a disconnection with self-esteem and self-care. When a person loses the rhythm of organization in their own room, there is, behind this, emotional exhaustion and a distancing from themselves. The way you prepare the space where you sleep, where you wake up, where you get dressed and say goodbye to the day is a direct thermometer of your relationship with your own identity. A welcoming, light room, with elements that represent who you are today, conveys a clear message of self-respect, presence, and self-love in practice. The mind responds to everything that is in that environment. Old, poorly maintained sheets reinforce the idea that you don't deserve the best. Throwing clothes indicate unmade decisions. Messy drawers show overlapping thoughts and a lack of clarity. Curtains that are always closed diminish your ability to open up to new possibilities. The bedroom is a mirror of the way you welcome yourself. When he is overwhelmed, so is his mind. And when it is light, your vital energy recovers more easily. Therefore, it is impossible to talk about emotional balance without considering the state of this environment. It directly influences the quality of your sleep, the clarity of your thoughts, and the value you attribute to yourself. When you leave your room and walk to the kitchen, what reveals itself is another equally essential aspect of your emotional life: nutrition. The kitchen represents your vital energy, your connection with sustenance, with the pleasure of feeding your body and soul. It symbolizes the relationship with basic care, that which sustains health, spirit, and disposition. Therefore, The state of your kitchen reveals how well you are able to nourish yourself, to stay strong, centered, and energized to deal with everyday challenges. A clean, functional kitchen with well-organized utensils, fresh food, and practical access to preparing meals shows an active connection with one's own inner strength. It symbolizes autonomy, vitality, and respect for the most fundamental needs. When the kitchen presents itself with an accumulation of dirty dishes, undiscarded rubbish, disorganized cupboards, or the absence of real food, what we see is a weakened relationship with our own emotional sustenance. The body and mind feed on what is cultivated in this space, and when it is neglected, personal energy weakens. Nutrition goes far beyond food. She talks about merit, a balanced routine, a willingness to take care of yourself on all levels. The kitchen is the center of the home that feeds the whole, and each gesture in this space carries the intention, conscious or unconscious, of preserving vital energy. And then you get to the room. This environment exposes what you communicate to the world, the way you present yourself socially, how you express yourself in relationships and exchanges with others. The room is the place for coexistence, for the expression of group identity. It symbolizes the social image you project, and also how willing you are to interact in an open, truthful, and welcoming way. A room that conveys comfort, organization, functionality, and harmony reveals a well-structured identity, a desire to share, to receive, to live with presence and authenticity. It shows emotional security and clarity of who you are in the collective. When the room is disorganized with too many objects, a television constantly on without purpose, furniture positioned in an uncomfortable way, or an excess of visual distractions, it points to an emotional field that may be trying to hide internal discomforts or worn-out relationships. The environment shows how much the person is allowing or limiting themselves in their interactions, and it also shows how she feels being seen, recognized, heard. A suffocating room may reflect relational overload. A dark room can signal emotional withdrawal and avoidance. A chaotic room can indicate unresolved conflicts. Social identity is expressed in this environment, and the more authenticity it carries, the truer the emotional reflection it returns. The bathroom, in turn, represents something much more subtle, but equally powerful: the process of emotional cleansing and releasing what no longer serves. This is the space of purification, relief, symbolic renewal, and therefore, it is directly linked to how you deal with what needs to be left behind. A clean, airy bathroom, with pleasant aromas, well-kept towels, and space for relaxation, reveals a healthy relationship with detachment, with the elimination of excess and openness to the new. It symbolizes emotional maturity, the ability to process emotions and move forward lightly. An unkempt bathroom, with an accumulation of dirt, stained mirrors, accumulated objects, or excessive humidity, indicates difficulty in letting go, in processing deep emotions. The body eliminates what is not useful in this environment, and the house mirrors this same movement on an emotional level. When cleaning becomes neglected, there is a resistance to dealing with what is hidden. Each time this space is used with presence and intention, a part of the mind also aligns. Physical renewal activates symbolic renewal. The smell, the texture, the light, everything communicates something to the subconscious. And every time the bathroom expresses care, the message that echoes internally is one of lightness and emotional fluidity. These four environments, bedroom, kitchen, living room, and bathroom, are much more than functional divisions of a house. They are physical representations of essential areas of the human psyche: self-care, vitality, relationships, and detachment. The way each one is structured, decorated, and cared for accurately reflects how these pillars are being lived internally. When these spaces are in harmony, the mind responds with clarity, lightness, and emotional strength. When they are out of balance, the signs manifest themselves in the form of tiredness, confusion, irritability, and disconnection from the center itself. The house talks to your mind all the time. And now that this language begins to be decoded, everything starts to make more sense. Each room becomes an emotional listening point. Every detail becomes a clue about how you have related to your own feelings. And it is exactly from this awareness that transformation begins to take shape. Because the next step is to understand how to transform these spaces into true allies of your emotional health. And this happens with simple but conscious choices that align your home with your well-being your energy, and your new vision of yourself. As you see your home more consciously, something inside you also begins to realign. The bedroom is no longer just a place to sleep. It begins to express how much care you have taken. The kitchen reveals how much your vital energy has been nourished. The room shows the quality of your relationships and your presence in the world. And the bathroom starts to tell you how you've been dealing with what you need to release. Each space is communicating a part of itself with clarity and depth. And now that you recognize this silent language, transformation becomes inevitable. At this moment, there is an energy in movement. It's as if the house has been heard for the first time, and you too. When this awareness awakens, everything begins to align. Intentions, choices, everyday gestures. The house stops being a setting and becomes a living reflection of your emotional journey. And each time you recognize this process becomes stronger. Then turn this moment into an affirmation. Write here in the comments the word lightness that represents how you want to feel the energy in your home from today onwards. When you write, you manifest. When you share, you confirm your choice. And by doing so, you inspire others to do the same. This is more than a comment. It is a commitment to your well-being. It's a real step toward a home that's more connected to who you are. Then write. Choose your word. The transformation has already begun. There is a silent language that lives in every corner of your home, a communication that does not use words, but is present in shapes, subtle noises, physical sensations, inexplicable discomforts, and even in gestures that you repeat every day without realizing it. Your home talks to you all the time, and more than that, it whispers truths that your subconscious tries to hide. These whispers are not metaphorical, they are real. They are on the path you avoid passing, on the door that keeps closed, in that drawer that has been locked for months. In each of these ignored spaces, there is a message waiting to be heard, a part of your story that remains there, standing still, asking for attention. Certain environments in the house seem to push you away. It's as if stagnant energy creates an invisible barrier. You enter, but you don't stay. Look, but don't see. He passes by it every day, but pretends it doesn't exist. These seats are not empty. They are loaded with emotional memory, and the more they are avoided, the more intensely they whisper that something there needs to be looked at with presence. A corner of the room where you once felt comfortable, but now accumulates useless objects. A bedroom closet that you open in a hurry, just to take out the essentials and close them again. A room where the light is dim, ventilation is scarce, and the silence is dense. Every detail carries a layer of your emotional history. And your home holds these layers like a body holds pain that has not yet been treated. When something hurts in the body, it is natural to touch, protect, treat. But when the pain is emotional, the impulse is often to hide, deflect, avoid. And the reflection of this appears in the way the spaces in the house are manifested. The place you avoid organizing may be speaking to a part of you that feels forgotten. The environment where excess reigns may be translating the anxiety of accumulating for fear of losing. The space without color, without life, without identity, may be expressing an internal void that requires real emotional fulfillment, and not just with objects. Your house shows exactly where it hurts, and when you start to observe more consciously, you realize that every mess has an emotional origin. Nothing there is out of place by chance. An accumulation of papers can reveal mental overload, the clothes left in the corner, the difficulty of completing a cycle. Broken things, kept to fix one day, represent promises that were made and never kept. And these elements whisper. Over time, they start to scream, because the energy in the environment becomes the physical repetition of a mental pattern. And the more you ignore it, the more discomfort sets in. The house, like a body, manifests symptoms. Moisture on the walls, poor lighting, poorly positioned furniture, lack of circulation. All of this can be translated as accumulated tension, unreleased thoughts, repressed emotions. There is an energetic intelligence operating behind the scenes of your routine, and it responds directly to what you feel, think, and avoid. That closet that doesn't close properly could represent a decision that needs to be made. That forgotten box under the bed can hold much more than objects. It holds stories, versions of you that have not been integrated. The crooked rug you see every day and don't adjust says more about your emotional state than you might think. Every house has an area that silently calls for help, a song that expresses stagnation, an environment that when reorganized, immediately releases an unexpected lightness. This happens because the energy field opens, and the mind feels authorized to breathe more clearly. It is at this point that the house is understood as a body that shows, without filters, where the pain is. And by recognizing this, you open up the possibility of healing this pain with simple and conscious gestures. Changing the light bulb in a dark corner is like turning on a dormant part of your consciousness. Reorganizing a space can mean giving new order to your feelings. Throwing away what no longer makes sense is a symbolic declaration that you are ready for the new. The house talks, even when you pretend not to hear it. And each ignored space is a part of you that has also been left aside. That corner of the room where you haven't sat in a while could be the mirror of your forgotten self-esteem. The foggy bathroom mirror can represent the distorted view you have of yourself, and an empty refrigerator can symbolize a lack of vital energy. These details are not small. They are the most sincere signs of how your mind is processing your life. And once these signs are recognized, the transformation stops being conceptual and starts to be felt in practice. The energy in the house changes when you change. And by listening to the whispers it emits, you come closer to who you really are. Intuition becomes clearer. Choices gain more direction. Life at home aligns with what happens inside you. This symbolic reading transforms your relationship with the environment. You begin to act with intention. Start paying attention to places that previously went unnoticed. And from that, your own energy responds. You feel like opening the window, renewing the air, moving a piece of furniture, taking out of the closet what has been sitting there for years. This impulse is not just aesthetic. It is emotional, vibrational, psychological. It's your house telling you, I'm ready to change with you. This movement creates a new atmosphere. The house breathes, the spaces come to life, and you start to listen better to those whispers that have always been there, waiting to be recognized. The awareness that each space communicates, that each room has a message, becomes part of your daily life. You walk into the kitchen and feel like you need to eat better, pass through the room, and feel the desire to reorganize the flow. Enter your room and realize that that colorless wall deserves to reflect who you are today. Go to the bathroom and understand that that mirror deserves to show someone whole, present, and at peace. These signs are everywhere, and the more you recognize them, the more your home gives you clarity, strength, and balance. This is the emotional intelligence of space, a wisdom that lives with you, that observes you, and responds to you. And now that you've learned to listen to the whispers in your home, the next step is to figure out how to turn that communication into action. Because these signs that she sends you every day are, in fact, invitations to transform your environment into a space of active healing, of reconnection with your truth, and of expression of your new energy. And from here, this listening turns into movement. Noticing the whispers in your home changes everything. What previously went unnoticed now reveals itself as part of your story, your energy, your emotional life, the forgotten corner, the stopped object, the turned off light. Each detail takes on new meaning. And most importantly, this transformation has already started within you. Because when listening becomes more sensitive, the house responds. And when you recognize these signs, you become an active part of the change happening around you. This content has already led you to see your home with more awareness, more presence, and more truth. And now, there is a very simple way to continue this movement. Enjoy this video. Yes, this gesture carries enormous strength. By liking, you help this message reach other people, other homes, other stories that also need to awaken to this reconnection. You show that this silent listening makes sense, that it touches, transforms, and deserves to be expanded. Like now, your action reinforces this path of transformation that is already underway. A lighter environment starts with conscious choices and supporting. This content is one of them. Your home will thank you. Your process too. Some environments carry such ancient silences that the house itself seems to have learned to keep it a secret. They are spaces that bring a dense energy, properties that have passed through many hands, rooms that remain closed for months, years, as if voices, memories, pains still echo inside them that continue to be embedded in the walls, in the objects, in the vibrations of the place. It's common to live among inherited furniture, old photos displayed as symbols of continuity, china cabinets that no one touches, beds where other stories have already slept. And all of this, even if it seems like just part of the decoration, directly influences your emotional state. The house that houses your body also houses traces of a past that often is not even yours, but still, it shapes you, traps you, limits you. These emotional legacies manifest in subtle but powerful ways. That room that belonged to your grandmother, and today serves as a guest room, but is rarely used, maybe reflecting the weight of a memory that was not elaborated on. It's not just there for utility. It's there like a time capsule, a place where energy has been suspended. Each inherited piece of furniture tells a story, and even without knowing the details of this story, your body feels it. Your mind registers. Your energy responds. The antique sideboard, the bookshelf loaded with family albums, the ceramic objects that were kept out of respect. All of this forms an energetic field that transmits silent messages, and many of these messages talk about attachment, pain, absences, stories that still circulate around the house even after they have ended. Living in environments like this is like living inside an echo. You wake up and feel like you're repeating cycles. You notice that certain emotions are repeated, that certain decisions are postponed, that something seems to pull you back into something that has already passed, but is still present. This is not just sensation. It is an energetic response. It is the architecture of trauma manifesting itself in your routine. Often, you can be emotionally trapped in a cycle that isn't even yours, just because your home was assembled, decorated, and structured based on stories that belong to other generations. And these patterns remain active while objects continue to occupy the same places, while rooms continue to be treated as untouchable, while space continues to respect pains that no longer need to exist there. Energetic detachment begins the moment you recognize that the house needs to represent who you are now, and not what you once were. Making space does not mean rejecting history. It means choosing what of this story still makes sense to keep. It is an act of presence, of respect for you, in alignment with the present time. The environment needs to vibrate your current energy. You need to welcome your new cycles, your new feelings, your new way of existing. When you enter a room and feel that there is a blockage, a tension, a discomfort that you can't explain, pay attention. It is the space signaling that something there is outside your current field of identity, and this could be being supported by an old curtain, by a piece of furniture that is too dark, by a hand-embroidered quilt that you feel guilty about taking down. But no decoration is worth more than your emotional health. The house needs to be shaped with conscience. And for this, it is essential to identify where there is still attachment disguised as tradition. Chant that seems too sacred to be played may be impeding the natural flow of your energy. The closet with clothes belonging to someone who has already left, kept out of respect, may be causing stagnation. The room with old photos in every corner may be keeping active a phase of life that has already ended. And every time your mind is exposed to these images, these objects, these colors, it is reminded of a narrative that interrupts your emotional autonomy. The energy in the house needs to move, and for this to happen, you need to recognize what no longer represents who you are. Identity reconstruction first happens within you, but it manifests itself in the environment. As you transform, your space also needs to reflect this transformation, replacing what no longer makes sense, donating what doesn't connect with your new phase, reorganizing what was forgotten. All of this has a direct impact on your well-being, because every gesture of this kind communicates to your mind that you are ready to move on, to grow, to affirm a new version of yourself. A new cycle calls for a new environment, and that doesn't mean renovating the entire house. It means realigning energy with intention, with authenticity, with lightness. It's looking at a piece of furniture and feeling that it represents your present, and not the weight of the past. The house has the power to support you or paralyze you, and this influence comes precisely from the elements that were maintained by emotional inertia. The architecture of trauma is built on the accumulation of unresolved stories, the repetition of familiar patterns, the exaggerated preservation of symbols that should have just passed. And when you enter this process of energetic cleansing, of symbolic relocation of your spaces, you begin to feel the physical, emotional, and mental relief that this generates. Breathing deepens, creativity flows again. The feeling of belonging strengthens, because now your home recognizes you. And most importantly, you recognize yourself within it. At this moment, the rooms begin to serve as true mirrors. You enter an environment and feel that it represents you. There is no discomfort, no guilt, no feeling of inadequacy. Every object has a purpose. Every detail conveys presence. The atmosphere changes because the identity has changed, and this becomes visible, palpable, alive. That's when the house stops being a storehouse of memories and becomes a space for manifestation, a safe territory where the past finds its place with respect, but without imprisonment, where energy circulates, where light enters, where days flow more lightly, because space has started to speak the language of now. This is the difference between inhabiting a place and being inhabited by it. When you don't consciously choose the symbols that surround you, you end up living within other people's emotional choices. When you decide to free yourself from these inherited layers, your home begins to reflect not only who you are, but who you are becoming. And it is this movement that paves the way for the next transformation. Because once you understand what's behind the objects, the furniture, the structures in your home, you also become capable of redesigning the way your story will be lived from now on. The house repositions itself, and your mind finds a new point of balance. And it is from this new base that the next step begins to take shape. There are signs that don't scream, but weigh down. Signs that don't ask for help out loud, but that manifest themselves every day in the small details of your space. The house, when it is in energetic, emotional, and symbolic imbalance, begins to communicate in subtle ways. And those who learn to perceive these signs clearly are able to access something much deeper than organization or aesthetics. They access their own emotional health translated into the form of an environment, the clutter that seems casual, the procrastination that accumulates in simple tasks, the constant feeling of suffocation for no apparent reason. All of this reveals a house asking for attention. And when the house asks, it's because the mind is already overloaded. Persistent clutter isn't just a lack of time. It represents the mental overload that has accumulated to the point of blocking the impulse to action. When a space remains messy for many days in a row, it stops being just a picture of disorganization and becomes a mirror of how emotions are trying to reorganize themselves without success. Scattered papers, piled up clothes, objects out of place, all of this forms a kind of external-internal landscape. What is visible around accurately represents what is happening inside. Every object out of place shows a part of the mind that is trying to find direction. Clutter is an emotional map, and the most curious thing is that it also feeds this internal state. The more mess you see, the harder it becomes to find clarity to get out of it. This disorganized energy creates a silent cycle. The environment is heavy, the body feels, the mind closes. Simple tasks like putting away a piece of clothing, washing the previous day's dishes, folding a towel, start to seem too big. Not because of laziness, but because vital energy is being consumed by the very attempt to remain functional. The mind does not relax when the environment does not favor flow. Procrastination sets in when space stops supporting action and starts generating resistance. And it all starts like this. You enter the house and you already feel the weight. Your eyes look for a resting point and only find confusing visual stimulation. The energy is blocked. The body asks for rest, but the mind remains racing. This is a clear cry for help. The feeling of suffocation within your own home is another very common sign, and often ignored. It appears when environments are too crowded, with too much furniture, too many dark colors, stacked objects, heavy decoration, closed windows, compromised ventilation. The air feels thick. Natural light has difficulty entering, and without even realizing it, you start spending less time in these spaces. Avoid, slope, isolate, but the house is still there, trying to make itself heard through what you feel and can't name. This feeling of not fitting into the place where you live is an indication that something needs to be reorganized, not only in the decoration, but in the relationship with the environment and with the emotional moment experienced itself. Another recurring behavior in homes that ask for help is the feeling of heaviness when waking up. Even after hours of sleep, the body wakes up tired. The room is visually polluted, with many stimuli, no clarity. The bed was not made. The space was not ventilated. The light is artificial. The day begins with the energy from the previous day still circulating. This creates an unconscious repetition of fatigue, The mind understands that it is in a cycle without renewal, and when this happens again, the environment reinforces the idea that there is no advancement, just maintaining an exhausted standard. Within the routine, behavioral signs also appear: difficulty concentrating, irritability for no apparent reason, loss of focus on simple tasks, apathy towards activities that previously gave pleasure. All of this is connected to the space in which we live. An environment in emotional imbalance compromises mental clarity and energetic stability. Procrastination starts in small details: an unwashed dish, a stacked box, a piece of paper forgotten on the table. And when these elements become part of the scenario, they are no longer consciously noticed, but continue to emit signals to the subconscious, signs of accumulation, of pending issues, of silent urgency. There is also the movement of escaping the environment. The person feels like leaving home without a specific reason, seeks refuge outside, feels more relief in neutral places than in their own home. This indicates that the energy in the space is no longer welcoming, that the emotional field of the house is reverberating tension, excess, stagnation, and the body notices. The mind tries to avoid it. The behavior follows. The house becomes a collection space instead of a refuge, and it all starts with the most everyday details. The relationship with time inside the house also changes. The minutes seem longer. Pauses are interrupted by visual disturbances. Rest does not happen completely. There is always something to be done, something to be resolved, something piled up waiting for attention. This constant pending energy generates a tiredness that is not physical, it is energetic, and it accumulates to the point that it blocks the ability to act. All this is the house screaming for order, not a rigid order, but a living, organic order that restores the natural flow of the space. And then, forgetfulness arises. You enter a room and don't remember why you entered. Open the closet and forget what you were going to get. Take your cell phone and distract yourself. This disconnection with small daily actions is a reflection of the confusion installed in the mental field and amplified by the environment. The house becomes the stage for dispersion, and all the while, the silent mess keeps growing, taking shape, taking up space, absorbing your energy without you even realizing it. Recognizing these signs is the first step to breaking the cycle. The mind asks for clarity, the body demands lightness, and the house responds with physical, material, symbolic signs. A corner that becomes uncomfortable, a piece of furniture that is poorly positioned, a wall that looks darker than it should, an object that has fallen and has not yet been replaced. None of this is random. Everything is language. Everything is an expression of an emotional field that is asking for reorganization, for breathing, for alignment, and this silent request is present between the lines of the routine. Just look with presence, listen with sensitivity, and act with intention. When the house is asking for help, it shows. She doesn't hide it. She shows it in a soft, constant, delicate way. And your every gesture towards the emotional organization of space is also a gesture towards healing. Because by recognizing these small signs, you take the first step towards re-establishing the balance between the place where you live and the mind that inhabits that body. And this step transforms everything. The routine changes. The energy changes. The way of living inside your own home begins to become lighter, more conscious, more yours. And from here, new paths of transformation naturally open up. When the house begins to align with your energy, something inside you rearranges itself as well. The look becomes more present. Tasks gain meaning. The mind finds breath. This transformation has already started inside, in the small gestures that you recognized, in the sensations that your environment revealed to you throughout this video. And now, this same change that touched your space can reach many other people. How many homes today are suffocated by this same feeling of overload? How many routines remain stuck in cycles of emotional disorder without anyone noticing? Sharing this video is opening windows in houses that still live in the dark. It's bringing light to those who are immersed in the silent mess and believe that this is normal. It's showing that the house feels and that the mind responds. It's about creating a chain of transformation that starts inside, goes through the walls, and reaches other homes that also need to find balance, lightness, and clarity. Your gesture, by sharing, contributes to something much bigger than a video watched. It plants awareness in places that can flourish in the form of well-being. This movement is already part of you, and now it can expand. Because transforming the energy of an environment means transforming the way people live within it. And you can be the beginning of that change for someone. Share. This action carries a subtle but powerful force, the force of someone who has already felt the impact and chooses to spread it. The house responds to the movements you make with intention. Each small physical change causes a symbolic reorganization that directly impacts the way you think, feel, and act. The space you live in has the power to influence your habits, your focus, your energy, and even your decisions. Reprogramming the environment is reprogramming the mind. And this happens through simple, everyday choices that seem small at first glance, but which over time completely transform the quality of your day. It all starts with the look. Really look at what previously went unnoticed. Observe where the energy has stopped, where it is accumulated, where there is excess or absence. A piece of furniture that blocks the passage, a pile of papers that has become part of the landscape, a color that no longer represents what you feel, an object that connects you to a phase that has already passed. Each of these elements has an energetic weight that feeds internal patterns. And the first step to reprogramming this flow is to bring about small changes, with awareness, with presence, with truth. Changing a color on the walls, for example, is more than aesthetic. It's creating a new frequency in this environment. Light tones expand the perception of space and bring mental lightness. Earthy colors bring warmth and emotional security. Warm colors activate movement, energy, momentum. Yellow stimulates creativity. Blue promotes calm. Green stabilizes. Choosing a new color is choosing the energy you want to feel in that space. And the simple decision to paint a wall already signals to your subconscious that something is changing. The mind perceives the new and begins to adjust to it. The environment becomes a mirror of transformation. Reorganizing a space is also a powerful form of emotional reprogramming. Changing the position of a piece of furniture, opening up circulation space, eliminating visual obstacles. All of this activates new mental connections. The body feels freedom. The mind understands that there is room for the new. Each physical reorganization is an opportunity to undo old patterns. By changing the flow of the environment, you change the internal flow. The energy that was previously blocked begins to circulate. And this is reflected in your motivation, in the clarity of your thoughts, in your willingness to create, resolve, move forward. Another effective practice is to establish a disposal ritual. Separating 5 objects per week to donate, recycle, or dispose of creates a constant dynamic of renewal. With each object removed, you release a part of the past that no longer makes sense. And this simple gesture, repeated over time, has a profound effect. The space begins to cleanse energetically. The mind gets used to detachment. The heart learns to make choices more lightly. Accumulated objects take up more than physical space. They take up emotional space. And by opening those gaps, you invite new experiences, new ideas, new versions of yourself. Organizing a drawer may seem insignificant, but this small act communicates to the mind that there is direction, that there is control, clarity, intention. What is outside begins to reflect what is forming inside. And the repetition of these gestures generates a new internal rhythm. A clean, functional, and beautiful environment is not an aesthetic end. It is a starting point for behaviors that are more conscious, more balanced, and more aligned with who you are becoming. Lighting is also a key element in this process. Natural light has the power to revitalize the body and calm the nervous system. Dark environments for long periods fuel excessive introspective energy, which can lead to emotional stagnation. Opening the windows, letting the sun in, renewing the air are gestures that bring movement. Placing lamps in strategic points creates pockets of coziness. Candles, warm lamps, indirect lights soothe the mind and bring an immediate calming effect. The light you cultivate outside is the light your mind learns to hold within. Aromas are also allies in reprogramming the environment. Essential oils such as lavender, lemongrass, rosemary, and sweet orange act directly on the limbic system, activating feelings of relaxation, focus, presence, and joy. A diffuser in the bedroom, a spray in the workplace, an incense at the end of the day, all of this anchors your mind in more favorable states of perception and response. When the senses are stimulated with intention, the body responds more fluidly, and this creates a more stable emotional base, more conducive to balance. Plants, in addition to purifying the air, have a direct impact on the vitality of the environment. They bring presence, connection with the natural cycle of life, beauty, and freshness. A well-cared-for plant conveys the idea that the space is alive, that there is energy and movement, active care, a bond with the present. Introducing vegetation indoors is like saying to the mind, there is life here, there is growth, there is renewal. Renewal rituals also have a transformative role. It can be a small weekly practice, like reorganizing a corner of the house, moving an object, renewing a vase, cleaning with intention. It could be something bigger, such as a change in layout, a visual redesign, a reconfiguration of functions in each environment. When these actions are done with presence, they create new mental triggers, break automatic patterns, and awaken new attitudes. The house starts to collaborate with your goals, instead of just housing your old habits. An environment aligned with who you are creates visual reminders that support your choices. A painting with a phrase that represents your new phase, a vibrantly colored object in the right place, an organized shelf with books that inspire you. Every detail becomes an emotional anchor point. You look and recognize yourself. You feel and become stronger. You live and realign yourself. The mind learns through repetition, and the environment is the scenario that reinforces or weakens these cycles. Reprogramming your home is like updating your internal system. It's letting the space tell a new story, a story where there is space for the essential, where light enters freely, where the senses find comfort, where the movement of the new is welcome. The transformation does not require major reforms. It requires presence, attention, decision, a painted wall, a lit corner, a repositioned piece of furniture, one less object. All of this has the power to change your way of being in the world. And from here, what once seemed small becomes the basis of a new lifestyle, because your home has already started to change. And along with it, your mind. From the moment you transform the way you look at your home, everything around you begins to respond. What seemed part of the routine turns out to be a reflection of your emotional state, and what used to be heavy now finds space to be reorganized. Your home is more than a setting. It is an active mirror of your energy, your clarity, your ability to start over. And when you take the first steps to change colors, reorganize spaces, let go of what has already fulfilled its role, you are already reprogramming your mind, your perception, and your own story. Today's content has already touched you in some way. This was visible in the thoughts that arose, in the spaces that came to mind, in the desires that began to be born. This is the movement that matters. And now it's time to expand this even further. Share here in the comments. Which room in your house most represents your emotional moment today? It could be the bedroom that asks for more care, the living room that reveals overload, the kitchen that is asking for more nutrition. Your response helps to create a space for exchange, where other people also see each other, connect, and are inspired to act. And now that this transformation has begun, enjoy this video as a gesture of recognition for everything you've noticed so far. This simple act helps this message reach other homes that are also asking for lightness, clarity, and reconnection with what is essential. Each like expands this awareness and strengthens a movement to care for the environment and the emotional health of those who live there. Subscribe to the channel right now. Being part of this community is much more than watching videos. It's committing to a new way of living in your own home. Here, each content is an invitation to presence, self-care, and the construction of a space that welcomes, that represents who you really are, and that supports your emotional evolution. Being here means being on the move, always, with purpose, always with intention. And don't stop here. Previous videos are now available with in-depth reflections on how your home directly impacts your well-being, your mental clarity, and your inner organization. Choose the next video and continue this path of transformation that is already happening in your time, at your pace, within the most intimate space there is, your home. Thank you very much for being here. Your presence is essential for this channel to exist with purpose, with meaning, with truth. May every insight today reverberate into real actions in your space and help you build a home that is more aligned with what you feel, live, and desire. And never forget, your home is an extension of your balance. Take care of her, and she will take care of you.